Hey folks, David here with Tomb Runners Designer Diary. This is the 9th video in the series. I got a ton of stuff done today, starting with some Kickstarter or crowdfunding layout items, showing off the book cover, some of the sales copy, the ad copy here. It just says Tomb Runners Rules Light, Cinematic OSR, Narrative D20. Those are kind of that's the one sentence pitch for folks. I think it'll capture a lot of attention with that combination of words. If you're in the hobby, you might wonder, what is cinematic OSR? What is narrative D20? And that's the whole point. Then you scroll down and the page will show off some more things and explain all of that to you. Also got some sample spreads put into a really nice format with the stitching, the book binding and the stitching and drop shadows and everything, so it looks like a final production image, even though I haven't actually laid this out under the studio light and taken photos of the book. The proof printings, I've already got some proof of concept layouts for the crowdfunding page. And then I'll have photos of the real books as well as clean full-size images for people to preview what the spreads look like digitally, and not just a photo of a page. Let's see, what else? I got a lot of cleanup done today on the design. I didn't add any content to the book, but I did clean up a lot of things. I moved a couple of art pieces around. I moved this image, this party of dwarves in this little ravine with all their equipment. I put that opposite the equipment page that explains the different ways you use equipment and items, tier and wear and all that. And I moved this image, which is a really nice just dungeon open layout, like a flaming skull mouth entrance to a cave and some tombs. I put that opposite one of the feet pages because it just fits this art here with this character. It fits that aesthetic better than the more old school dwarf party there. This one's just kind of, it's similarly cartoonish, so it fits better there. And the dwarfs with all their equipment fits better with the equipment page. So that's an example of one thing I swapped around, cleaned up. I also changed the job and heritage page. I changed the thief job again. Now, if you're a thief, your work action in downtime is +2 supply instead of 1, but you lose 1 reputation with a faction. So that gives the GM some natural heat to put on that character or the party every time they do that. They keep stealing from the same crew, the same, merchant, something like that. I also changed the noble to merchant because that's more fitting to the nature of characters in Tomb Runners. You're not a noble. You wouldn't be a Tomb Runner if you were a noble, but you can be a merchant when you're not venturing in the tombs. The other thing, I changed it to a 2-column layout for the jobs. It just looked a little better than the centered. I need to, well, maybe, I don't know, seeing it here now, let's compare. So previously, the page, I've got a bookmark here. So the corner is bent. The page looked like this. Now it looks like this. And I don't know if you can get a good look here. Obviously the screen is going to be a lot brighter, but you can see the layout difference in the two. I'll have to do some side-by-side. The margins might not support the 2-column layout for the jobs like I thought it would. And now that I'm looking at it here, I feel like the text is a little cramped there. Here it's a little, it's too open. Maybe I just need to tighten the margins for that one page just to tighten up the text. Because I have it full justified with auto hyphenation, though none on this page had to hyphenate because there's so much space. So maybe the answer is say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, I have 10 jobs. That's what I wanted to have. I could add another, but the thing that putting it in the 2 columns let me do was add this artwork on the bottom. I really like this piece of art. It's not super detailed, so I knew it would be a good splash piece in the corner somewhere, and I thought this was a good place for it. But if the layout doesn't work as 2 columns, I might have to swap that back. What I wanted to talk about today in this video is the way I want to design tombs versus dungeons in traditional games. So one of the inspirations for Tomb Runners are the ideas of one-page dungeons that are so popular in OSR games, where people can just design, a whole adventure and fit it on one page, and that includes artwork and text. I really like that concept, that idea of just giving you a page of stuff to use and play, and Tomb Runners is great for that kind of play where you just have a list of things to pull from, and then you use that to keep the game flowing. And the other thing was the way Forbidden Lands from Free League. This is one of my favorite fantasy RPGs. The way it handles what it has, instead of dungeons or pre-written adventures, it calls them adventure sites, and they can be it could be a town full of different quest hooks and NPCs and a couple encounters, or it could be a dungeon. This one is the Vale of the Dead, and then it's just a couple of pages of what's this place about, what are some of the characters. There will be a page showing off some artwork for it, like a map, but there's no detailed dungeon maps. And I think that's important for Tomb Runners as well. You could play Tomb Runners on a gridded mat or 3D printed dungeon tiles and all that kind of stuff with representative figures, but it's not a game that's got the tactical codified rules that needs that. And I also find dungeon design of that style to be lacking in every other way, because you have to put so much work into the layout that no one ever remembers a memorable dungeon, because of there's never the layout is never the thing that's memorable about a dungeon. It's what you do in the rooms. So a lot of times dungeon layouts, they're very aesthetically pleasing, and they tell you exactly what kind of game you're playing, but they don't in practice really add much to the experience. So I really like this approach of just giving you a place that's interesting, full of interesting things, or the idea of doing that in a one-page dungeon and that being what you pull from. And the way I want to work that into Tomb Runners, what I've been thinking about is what's going to be the pre-written adventure that I include in the zine edition, because the hardcover book's going to have 50 to 100 pre-written dungeons or tombs, adventure sites, whatever you want to call them. But I also want to have one included in the zine edition, or for a free download for people to preview. And that would be the idea I came up with today would be to make it a 10 level dungeon. Each level is a higher tier, and have it basically be the mega dungeon, the mega tomb for Tomb Runners. And the gameplay loop would basically be inspired by Dark Souls and or roguelike games, where you delve in, if your character dies, roll a new character and go back in, get their stuff and keep going. And it would create a natural gameplay loop of, even if you lose like a level 3 character, you recover their equipment and sell it off, you're going to level up your new character quickly and catch up. There'll be baked in catch-up mechanics, especially in a party setting where maybe one character dies off, they bring all their stuff back, sell it in town, give the supply to the new character so they can automatically get a jump start, and they don't have to start at level 1. They will have to restart at they'll be down some point. It would be unlikely they would immediately jump up to the rest of the party's level, but it would be a really fun mechanic that would encourage repeated play and repeated diving into the dungeon. So each level, it would be an inverted pyramid. So the top level would be tier 1, and there would be a lot of tier 1 monsters there. There'd be a table. We'll say there'd be a page per tier. And So the tier 1 page will have a list of all the monsters, items, stuff like that you might come across in the first level of the tomb. And then the tier 10 page, the bottom, the final boss encounter, would be probably like an ancient dragon, like or a demon lord, like the source of why this tomb is, you know, is sending out its minions to the surface and wreaking havoc on the town, whatever. And then by the time you get to the 10th level, that gives you can have you can spend the whole page on just designing that one encounter instead of populating a whole floor of encounters with a lot of different little enemies. You can just fill out the page with how does this one encounter play out? What's this big boss? What's his room? What's he do? How's he fight? What's he have for items and powers and all that? I think that would be a really fun way to do it. And I would want to design it in a way where you could play through the whole Mega Tomb in a couple of sessions. Say one shot play, you get down to level 3 or 4, something like that. The next time, if you come back and play the same characters, the same game, push up to level 6 or 7, and then the last session, finish it off and do 8, 9, 10. I think the way it was designed to be a natural funnel down to more dangerous, but more tight encounters, and each floor would be smaller with less things to do, but harder challenges. It would naturally go quicker as you get down, with players going back up to the surface to do downtime if they need to heal, level up, roll a new character if they lose theirs, that kind of idea. So I think that's the way I'm going to go about doing the included adventure. Just have the mega dungeon, which will be the mega tomb, and that would give players and GMs especially a really good look at how to design different types of adventures in Tomb Runners, because you would have your low level, lots of weak enemies to encounter, and then you would have your big boss monster encounter, and then you can design somewhere in that space at any level. So you'd have, if you want to do just one-off adventure sites for like hex crawling, you could start at level 1 with having them have a boss fight. You just you drop the tier all the way down to 1, and you can still have an exciting encounter with just one big boss, or a boss with some minions. Instead of clearing out a dungeon full of low tier enemies, you can jump up straight to, one big encounter, one fun boss encounter. I described it to some friends earlier as, instead of thinking dungeon crawl, think a raid encounter in a MMO RPG. Instead of going through a dungeon really slowly and fighting lots of little monsters, you're going into the dragon's lair, maybe fighting a couple of whelplings, and then the dragon is there, and that is the whole tomb. That's the whole adventure. That lets players do something different than they're used to, where in classical dungeon crawl play, they have to worry about when and how they spend resources. And in Tomb Runners, I really want them to feel free to spend their resources aggressively, to do cool stuff and to survive. And if you just have a couple of encounters leading up to one big one, as opposed to they're crawling endlessly and not sure what the aim is here, they're going to spin things more freely. You can up the stakes from the get-go and make it a dangerous and exciting adventure from the start. And then they don't have to worry about, oh, I don't want to spend my healing potion now because I might need it later for the boss. When they know, oh, we came in one room at the start with the entranceway, and now we're in the boss room, so we can use what we need to clear out this dungeon, beat the boss, get our loot. Let's see, that's all for now. I've got the update on the Dungeon Master's deck. It finally updated the tracking, and it is delivered to local carriers. What it says, it took 6 days to get through customs in New York. Even though it said it cleared 6 days ago, it took till now to move from customs to the local deliverer, the local carrier. But it says local carrier. That's just the final carrier it's going to. So it's still coming from New York. and it should be here between Saturday and Tuesday, the 24th to the 27th. Originally, it was supposed to be here by the 16th. So that's a little bit annoying because I wanted to get a lot of stuff done for the deck this week to show off the new content and the new design for that, because that's the other part of this whole project, as I said in previous videos. But that gave me a lot of time just to work more on the book and on Tomb Runners, so that's fine. I got a ton done today over like 10 hours of sitting on the computer, so can't complain about that productivity. I think that's all. Let's look through the layout if there was anything else I changed or wanted to highlight. I've gotten some really good feedback on the Make a Monster and Encounter pages. People really like those. They're really simple, but they immediately get you in the mindset of how to use monsters in Tomb Runners, because there's no stat blocks, as I've mentioned a ton of times. A level 1, a tier 1 rat, a tier 1 orc, and a tier 1 skeleton, they all have the same stats. It's 1d6. The difference is how you play them, how you use them at the table. And so all the entries in the bestiary chapter describe their behavior, and then you apply that with the intent of like, how would they behave? And if you're not sure how they would behave, you can roll the Make a Monster and build an encounter table, and that'll give you ideas for their behavior, their environment, how they fight, if the players catch them unaware or if they get ambushed, that kind of thing. It has the reaction table, what the monster's goal is. Are they trying to escape? Are they trying to capture or consume if they're undead or something like that? What they're weak to, what their strength is. And then the encounter page has the layout, ideas, terrain, hazards, features, an event for the scene, like an interruption or backup. The monsters get backup, or the space changes. And then clocks that you can put into an encounter, like a powerful spell going off, the monsters changing their reaction. So instead of attacking, maybe now they flee. An environmental clock, you can have, the water rising in a flood environment, or new tactics. The monsters change how they're fighting. So instead of taking cover and firing ranged attacks, maybe now they just attack directly. They're charging, or they make a bargain if they're NPCs, intelligent creatures, or rival runners. Like I showed off yesterday, the rival runners page that has all the NPC creation tables. So there's a lot of things you can do with just these two tables of 2d6 or 6d6 if you wanted to roll on all of them and really flesh out the monster in the encounter. But those two pages are very, very powerful for getting players in the mindset for how monsters and encounters work in Tomb Runners. And that's the kind of stuff I'm going to flesh out more throughout the book, like the Build a Tomb. This one has a lot of the similar approach to fleshing out an adventure for Tomb Runners, where you are rolling the inhabitants of the tomb, what's happening in it. Are they casting a ritual? Are they forging an item? Are they kidnapping local civilians? Are they summoning something? Is something weird with time happening there? What's their goal? Power, escape, isolation. Sometimes they just want to be left alone. What's the player's mission? And then what's the danger? Like spells, traps, ambushed. They're outnumbered. There's a traitor somewhere. Maybe the person that gave them the mission was actually betraying them. That kind of stuff. You can roll up with that. Let's see. That is gonna do it for today. I think one thing I'm excited about is making a bunch of magic items to put in the included adventure, because scrolls, potions, and items like armor, weapons, stuff you can wear. When players see them in action with how simple the system is, those kinds of things, I really want GMs to have give them away generously. Both put them on monsters, let monsters use them, and then let players take them and use them. That's where a lot of the fun in the system is. When players learn how to use their simple equipment, since swords, there's no +1. Nobody wants a +1 sword. That's very dull. But a sword that shines light in dark caves, or a flaming sword, or a sword that can throw and come back to you, that kind of idea. Magic items are where you can have a lot of fun in the system without resorting to simple mathematical bonuses. You'll notice also none of the spells have mathematical bonuses. The only way you get mechanical bonuses are through feats, and they're all narrative based things like let's see, what's one that gives mechanical bonus that is a good example? So the fighter feat rage, they can spend HP as stress. They can spend HP as SP while they're in melee combat. That becomes really potent when you look at the way resist rolls work, for example. So instead of spending SP that they could save for other things, they could spend HP to do a resist roll to reduce the harm from something. A resist roll costs 2 SP, and they could spend 2 HP to reduce the harm that was going to be 2d6 or 3d6 harm. So that becomes a really powerful way they can take a little bit of damage to probably resist a lot of damage. The Sentinel feat gives you +2 wear on your equipped armor and shield. That's just incredibly powerful because the armor reduction, that just gives you more harm reduction as well. The Holy feat for Rebuke gives you advantage on spirit resist rolls. So that's where you get your mechanical bonuses, not from items, but just your feats that give you little ways to push the odds throughout the different systems at play. And that lets things like spells and items be more narrative and more fun, because you don't just get a number bonus from them. When you pick up something, you think about how you can use it, not what dice bonus do I get for this. And I think that's a lot more fun for players once they get 1 or 2 items or 1 or 2 encounters where they see items used that way. They start thinking that way, and the game becomes a lot more organic and alive at the table when they look down and they say, okay, I have 5 item slots. I'm going to use every single one of these now because I see how to use items in this game, in this system. That's it for tonight. I'm going to wrap this up before I find something else to talk about. I appreciate you. I will check in again. What is today? Tuesday? Sometime this week, I'll definitely get some more videos up, maybe daily, depending on what I get done. And side note, technical things. This video is in 1080. I've been doing 4K, I think, for everything, but I think for these just simple, I'm just sitting in my office chatting. I don't think there's any reason to do 4K. It just takes forever to render and upload. But as long as the sound is good, I think 1080 is fine. Let me know if you think it's not for any reason. When I get to more authorial intent for the videos and not just rambling, then, if I'm doing a little more serious production, showing off something for the deck or the book, then I will be doing 4K for that, because that's the kind of stuff that'll be put on crowdfunding updates and stuff like that. And I think for that I will put up 4K. But for these, I think I'm gonna stick to 1080 just to save myself time and storage space for uploading and everything like that. I think that'll be fine. So that's it. I appreciate it, and talk to you soon.